Hi everyone, John Cottrell here of MBODY Yoga. This is Soft Flow Yoga, and it's a 60-minute gentle yoga practice. So glad that you can join me. So for our practice today, I thought we'd focus on a particular pose, which is a hip opener, and that's Pigeon Pose. So I've called the class Gentle Pigeon. So we're going to be using some props today, some of the usual things, and that's of course a nice soft blanket or towel that you can sit and kneel on, so make sure you have that. Perhaps a couple of yoga blocks. I have my little thin foam yoga blocks. You can also use the thicker ones, or if you have some hardbound books, that will work. Something that's stackable, and a few of these will be very useful for the practice. An alternative might be just a big cushion. I have my yoga bolster here. This is also going to be helping us with our featured pose today. So a nice cushion, something firm too. It can be a sofa cushion, that would work well. And you can see I have my chair right here, which I'm going to be moving out of frame in a moment. But something to balance on, because one of our poses that is also a hip opener is going to be involving some balance. So a table, a chair, a wall, something like that that can help you with that balance. Let me go ahead and move my prop out of the way here, and I'll join you by taking a nice comfortable seat. So join me perhaps in a cross-legged position. I like to sit in half lotus. You don't have to sit like this. You can sit in easy pose, just crossing at the ankles like so. But if you need to, you can always just extend a leg or both legs. And if you need a little extra support, feel free to sit in a chair or even up against a wall so you have some back support. Wherever you are, you just want to be able to sit up nice and tall, feel quite comfortable. Maybe just roll the shoulders a few times. Just be sure they feel relaxed. Sometimes we hold a lot of tension. They tend to rise up towards our ears. So go ahead and relax them. And your arms can just relax here by your side and your hands in your lap. Now, we're going to be moving into breath. You might start with a few deep breaths. You can breathe in deeply through your nose. You can exhale through your nose or out through your mouth. Breathing in and breathing out. Now just continue with slow, steady breaths. You can do this with your eyes opened if you'd like. Just take a soft gaze forward, even down at the ground. Make sure your eyes are nice and soft. Or you can just simply close your eyes and just take this journey inward, taking this opportunity to focus on ourselves. Tune in. Even be aware of how you're feeling at this moment. Creating an intention for your practice is always appropriate. Just feeling and thinking about how your practice can assist you, can help you, support you. Slow, steady breaths. Finding stillness. A wonderful way to deeply connect, move inward. Let's take 3 more slow, deep breaths. Using these breaths to prepare your body to move. And when you're ready, inhale and extend your arms out across the room, then all the way up towards the ceiling. A nice big stretch. And exhale, extend your arms out, reaching across the room, and let them float back down by your side. Again, inhale, extend your arms out, good reaching effort, out, then all the way up. And then exhale, reaching out, and then back down. Let's continue to move and breathe. Now, as we inhale, we want to feel breath rising upward, filling up the lungs as the arms extend upward towards the sky. As we exhale, we continue to extend the arms, let them float out and then back down. And with that same exhale, draw your navel inward towards your spine. Again, breathing in, reaching out and up, At this point, you can just be moving and breathing at your own pace. Remember to exhale and draw your belly button inward toward your spine. We call that the abdominal lock. Nice engagement feeling here. It supports your center body. Finish the breath that you're on and take 2 more breaths. Take your time. Nice. And when you're complete, just let your arms relax. Take a breath or 2. Just let the body soften. While still seated, just bring your hands behind you. You may just prop yourself up onto your fingertips rather than your palms. Something like this. And with the arms behind you, you can draw the shoulders back. Feel the chest kind of puff up, opening up. And then tip your chin upward just a little bit so you don't strain your neck. We're creating a mild back bend. We're going to take another full deep breath in right here and feel the lung expansion. You've created more space with the arms behind you. You might even feel a stretch quality across the chest from shoulder to shoulder. Now with your exhale, we're still drawing belly button in towards spine to connect to center. Again, inhale, you might even press the fingertips into the floor for the energy in your arms. Breath is rising to fill up your lungs. Exhale, draw belly in, and as you're able, squeeze your shoulder blades together behind you. Inhale, fill yourself up. Exhale, engage to your center. Now when you squeeze your shoulder blades together, an image here might be, imagine you have a pencil right along your spine. You're trying to hold on to the pencil by engaging your back muscles. Let's take 1 more breath. Feel the energy of the breath, feel the energy in the body. When you're complete, just lower your chin so it's neutral. Walk your hands towards yourself so you're sitting up nice and tall. Again, you can just bring your arms into the front, hands in your lap, and just hold in stillness for a moment. We took our back bend, now let's take a forward fold. We're going to change our leg posture. Let me turn to you for a moment so you can see this change. So I was sitting in a half lotus, so if your legs were crossed, just uncross the legs and bring the soles of the feet together like this. And this is cobbler's pose or bound angle pose. We call it that because it's an angle, so that's the angle part, and bound because we're typically holding on to the limbs. It might be your ankles, it might even be your toes. In this case, let's just go ahead and hold on to the ankles or shins because you want to be able to sit up nice and tall at the beginning of this. Now don't worry if the knees don't touch the floor. Actually, this is where you can use your pillows or blocks or books and just place them underneath the legs so the legs can rest on them so they can really feel relaxed. Bound angle pose, you're going to hold onto the shins or ankles. Inhale just to feel very tall like you're going upward. As you exhale, draw your belly in, connecting to your center. You're going to start to hinge forward just a little bit, leading with your heart and your chin. Just a tiny bit so we formed a slight angle in the upper body. We haven't gone too far. I'm going to go a little bit more. Inhale first, extending through the spine, really feeling the torso lift up out of the pelvic bowl. Exhale, draw belly in for support as we hinge a tiny bit more. Now for soft flow, we don't have to go very far in any of our poses. In fact, that's why we like to use all these props, a way to support the body, and never needing to go fully into a pose, but just enough where you have sensation. So in this case here, as I fold, I can pause right here and I start to feel something in the inner legs. It's a hip opener. It kind of stretches and lengthens the inner thighs. Now you can go a little bit deeper by tipping the chin downward and let the back round a little bit and going a little bit further. We just want to make sure we're not straining the body with any position we're moving into. Again, just enough where you have sensation. Typically, I say you work at somewhere between 60 to 70% with each pose. You don't have to fully push or force yourself to that 100% percent mark. Because sometimes, even in yoga, and especially in real life, we try to push even beyond 100%. Sometimes, we hear the expression, give it 110%. We're really dialing it back so we don't strain or stress the body. So work at 60 to 70%. We're going to make our way back up, but first, let's lengthen the spine. First, just tip the chin up so the neck is neutral. As you hinge your way back up, you can place the hands on the floor to help press and assist your own body as you come back up, sitting nice and tall. Hold here for a moment. All right, let's move our props to the side. Carefully make your way to hands and knees. Here's where you might want to use your soft blanket or a towel perhaps. I like to open mine out to a rectangle so I can kneel just like this, hands and knees on my blanket. Two poses, cat pose and cow pose, that flow together, starting with cow. We're going to inhale and tip the chin up, opening up through the heart. The pelvis tips back so we create this little back bend feel. And exhale, we tuck the tailbone under, pelvis tucks in. Feel the belly button pull up towards spine, your back will round, and your chin dips down towards the chest. That's cat. Inhale to reverse it, feel the pelvis tip back. Your belly might relax and kind of drop. There's the back bend, open the heart, look forward. Exhale, round it all out. Cat pose. Now continue to breathe and move at your own pace. The main thing here is to feel this nice undulation through the spine, this rocking of the pelvis. A wonderful and somewhat easy practice to do to maintain wonderful mobility through the spine and in your hips. Sometimes you may not have time to do a full 1 hour yoga practice, but maybe you have time for maybe just one or two poses. This is a wonderful pose that you can just come down to hands and knees and do this rocking sensation. Wonderful undulation of the spine, and that could be your full yoga practice. That just takes a few minutes. Okay, finish the breath that you're on and just take one more. And then we'll finish here in a neutral tabletop position. Since we're on our hands quite some time, this puts a forced flex in the hands, and I can feel the hands feeling a little strained, so I like to get off the hands. So I'm going to tuck the toes here and sit back just enough where I can take the weight off of my hands. I call this half hero. So my hands can easily lift, and rather than this forced flexed feeling, I flip the palms down like this to get a counter stretch. I like to do a gentle pulse. Oh, that feels good already. Just a very light, gentle pulse 2 or 3 times just to get a counter positioning in the hand and wrist. Let me do the other side here. Another thing you can do with this, after you've done that position, just wiggle your fingers. It just gets that mobility and nice blood flow came back through the wrists and your forearms. Okay, let's come back up to hands and knees, but first, if you are using a pad, let's set that to the side. Let's come to hands and knees here. If your hands are directly underneath your shoulders, you are going to step the hands forward a little bit, spreading out your fingers pretty wide, which creates a good base. Grip the mat a bit with your fingertips, and then lean into the hands, press so the palms feel flat in the mat. That also will energize the arms. You want them to be strong and straight. Tuck your toes. Let's do another cat-cow flow. Inhale to cow. That's the back bend. Exhale, round it out into cat. Hold cat pose for a second. Lift your knees off the mat. Send your hips up into the air until you feel like your back is straight. Bend your knees quite a bit here. Keep lifting through the hips, and you can really feel the extension of the torso. Arms straight and strong. Be sure you're still pressing firmly into the mat with the hands. One more breath. Make sure your neck is relaxed here too. Now we're just going to step forward just to the center of the mat or to a place where your feet are flat on the mat directly underneath you, like so. And you can just slide your hands towards your toes. You'll be in a forward fold. It's okay if the knees are very bent.
We're going to inhale, slide the hands up to the shins or knees to extend the spine, only rising up halfway. This is half forward fold. Again, keep a good bend in the knees. Hold here for several breaths, maintaining this long flat back. It resembles a table, so we are parallel to the floor. Now shift your weight back into your heels a little bit. Bend your knees. Feel like you're going to sit down into a chair. Lift your chest and head. So we're at this angle. Take the arms out to the side, pressing feet into the floor to help straighten the legs as you stand up. And then reach up into the sky. Big stretch there. And exhale, bring your arms down to your side. This is mountain pose. We've arrived in our first standing position. Take another moment like we did in seated just to circle the shoulders. You might circle them backward a few times. You can roll them forward. Even go back to the hands and wrists. Since we just came out of that downward facing dog, you may want to do that counter stretch, okay, with the wrists here, like so, and wiggle the fingers. We're going to do another half salute. That's a forward fold, and then we come back up to standing. Starting in mountain, make sure the shoulders are rolled back, but relax down away from the ears. Here we go. Inhale, reach the arms straight up into the air, big stretch. Exhale, spread your wings, bend your knees, and sit back into an imaginary chair. You want to move so your back is still flat until you're about a little less than halfway down. Your back will naturally round, especially as the arms drop down towards toes. And you might just hang heavily forward there for a second. Inhale, slide your hands up to your shins or knees and extend your spine. The crown leads you forward. And exhale, back down we go. All the way down, nice stretch. Then a weight shift into the heels, bend your knees, sit, and then lift the chest. We want to maintain a flat back. Now here you can even place your hands on your thighs. Push into your thighs to help you stand. Nice leverage there. Then as we stand, we're going to get even taller by keeping or reaching the arms straight up into the air like so. Exhale, arms come down to your side. That finishes that sequence. You can shake things out if you like. And we're going to return to our mountain pose, standing near the top of the mat, and move into our variation of Warrior One. Standing tall, we like to put a little bend in the knees. Keep that softness in the knees here. Then start shifting your weight into your right foot so you feel rooted and connected into the earth with the right foot. You might lean forward just a tiny bit. You're going to start stepping the left foot back a little bit until it just naturally stops. It won't go any further. Heel lifted with a little flex in the toes like so. And you're going to turn the foot outward, okay? A little outward rotation in the leg. And then shift and kind of plant yourself, shifting back so you're feeling pretty centered and balanced. Now there's a lunge effect here, but there's not too much distance between the feet. Place your hands on your hips. You're going to push your pelvis downward while your torso feels tall, nice lengthened spine, putting some space in the belt line so you can turn forward. You want to face directly forward, same direction as your front toes. Now inhale, extend your arms straight up into the sky. Exhale, bend your elbows to 90 degrees. And we'll hold here for just a few breaths. Again, just a variation of Warrior One to kind of get that effect and feeling of standing in a lunge when your feet are not together, but apart. Let's go ahead and inhale, re-extend the arms straight up into the sky. Exhale, bring your arms down. Go ahead and place your hands on your hips here. We're going to lean forward, a little bend in this right knee as you shift the weight forward into this front foot so we can kind of pick up that back foot and step forward, feet together. Let's inhale and re-extend both arms up into the sky. We call that extended mountain pose. Exhale, arms return to your side. So that's our variation of Warrior One. Let's do the same on the other side. Be sure to soften the knees. Start shifting weight into your left foot. Root and connect. You can feel the strength and energy in this left leg. Lean forward a tiny bit. Let's tap the right foot back until this naturally stops. Heel is lifted. Feel the flex in the toes. The outer rotation of the leg, kind of spinning the foot out. Plant the heel, shift to center. Just kind of check in with that balance. Place hands on hips. Feel like you're pushing your pelvis downward as your torso feels tall, making space in the midsection so you can turn forward facing the same direction as your left set of toes. Inhale, extend arms up into the sky. Exhale, bend elbows to 90 degrees. Now I have you do this just so your arms don't get tired, reaching straight up in our variation of Warrior One. Now we will be doing another version of Warrior One a little bit later. Actually, it's coming up pretty soon. Let's inhale, extend the arms straight up into the sky. Exhale, bring your arms right back down. Bring hands to hips. Just lean forward. Let's put some pressure in this left foot so we can step forward, feet together. Let's inhale, stand up very tall, re-extending the arms up into the air, extended mountain pose. Exhale, arms return to your side. There we are. Another roll of the shoulders if you like. Very nice. All right, let's start going through our sequence. I break things down so we can move safely through each pose, taking our time. And again, moving between that 60 and 70%. Here we go. Inhale, extend the arms up into the air. Exhale, spread your wings, take the arms out to the side, bend your knees and sit back. Notice how the back is flat. Even notice when the back begins to round as you get a little lower. Now your hands might touch your toes, but you could just do a partial fold where your hands maybe just land at your shins. We'll inhale, slide the hands up the legs a bit to extend the spine so it's long and flat like you were standing. Exhale, let's fold, melt, let the back round, bend the knees more, even more, so that you can place your hands on the floor and start walking both feet back to the back end of your mat until you arrived in plank pose. You might need to straighten right here, just lengthen the body like so. Good strength posture. You can always bring knees to the floor if you need a little extra stability. Breathe in, then exhale, bend the knees a bit to send your hips up into the air. It's our return to down dog. Feel free to adjust your feet. I like to tiptoe forward. I even like to take my feet just a tiny bit wider. I just feel a bit more supported here. Spread out the fingers, press the palms firmly into the ground, strong arms, and relax the head. So that's our arrival in downward facing dog. When you're ready, inhale, let's pick up the right foot and extend the right leg back and slightly up. Just a nice strong straight line. You're going to bend this right knee. Bring this right knee in underneath you towards your chest. At the same time, shift your whole upper body forward until your shoulders are aligned over your wrists. And then just set the right foot down. It doesn't matter where. Just set it down and then set the left knee down like this. You can shift your weight back so you can actually pick up your right hand. Let's go pick up the right foot. I'm just picking it up and just stepping it up near the top of the mat where my right hand is. We're going for that next version of Warrior One. I'm re-lifting that left knee so you can see there's much more distance between the feet. I'm doing an outer rotation of that back leg like we did before, planting the heel into the ground. Now a lot of my weight is forward. I'm just going to step my hands back, even rise to fingertips, so I can get a little bit more weight in that back foot. I'm elongating my spine and torso out over the right thigh, facing the same direction as my front set of toes. Then hinge from hips. I'm just pushing into the ground with that foot to help me hinge, rise up until I'm tall. Let's take both arms up into the air, straight as can be, and there's our next version of Warrior One. See the difference and feel the difference? More distance between the feet, arms are straight up. Let's breathe in and exhale, open to the left side of the room. Bring your arms down to parallel, and you're now in Warrior Two. So you want to be sure your right knee is still pointing directly forward. Sometimes it likes to dip to the inside of the foot. You want to make sure it's still pointing directly forward. So we have this nice opening in the hips. This is all really getting us ready for our gentle pigeon pose that we'll be doing. We'll be doing several versions of it. Side angle pose. You're going to reach forward just a little bit to angle the upper half of the body and then rotate the arms. You don't have to go down too low. In fact, I like to place my hand or my arm on my thigh. In this case, I'm just going to place my hand right here. I'm at an angle. This is perfect. And extend the left arm straight up into the air. Taking several breaths. Let's breathe in, getting ready to move. In the exhale, just turn and fold. You're going to bring the hands down to the mat. You're going to rise up onto your tiptoes behind you. I call this a runner's lunge. Everything's facing forward. Plant or press the hands firmly into the ground. Strong, straight arms. If you can, feel the hips lift a little bit. So you can slide this right foot back to meet the other so you've returned to plank pose. Let's take a brief pause here. Bring the knees to the floor. Tuck your toes. Sit back to our half hero. Let's just stretch out the wrists once again. Wiggle the fingers. Good, because it's a lot of plank and down dog, which again continues that forced flex. I like to give that nice massage. All right, let's return to our downward facing dog. Hands out front. Be sure to spread out your fingers. Let's lift the knees and hips. Adjust the feet. Remember to keep a good bend in the knees, hips high. Nice long torso and spine. Press palms firmly into the mat. Relax your head. Let's do the other side. Inhale to lift the left foot, extend the left leg back and slightly up, reaching. Then you're going to bend that left knee, bring it in underneath you toward your chest or chin. Shift forward, shoulders will align over the wrists. Set the left foot down, set the right knee down. Less pressure on the hand so we can go pick up the left foot and literally just place it up a little higher on the mat. Doesn't have to go all the way up, just up towards. If you can see my hand and foot right here, my foot is slightly behind the hand. Relift the right knee, pivot right heel to the floor, stepping the hands back, rising to fingertips, making sure I put more pressure in that back foot. Long torso out over left thigh, crown pointing forward, same as my big toe. Pushing into the floor with this left foot so I can hinge, rising up. Let's take the arms up into the air, straight line. Even lunge a little deeper. Let's hold here for a couple breaths. Here's our warrior one. Let's inhale. Exhale, turn torso towards the right side of the room as your arms come down to parallel. Check in with this left knee. Be sure it's still pointing directly forward. Good energy in your arms. Might even check in with your back arm. Sometimes it likes to drop a little bit. Make sure it's parallel to the floor. Let's follow the left arm forward to angle the upper half of the body. Just a little bit is fine. Let's rotate the arms. Remember, you don't have to go down too low. And maybe, just as we did on the other side, your left hand can come to your thigh right here. And then reach up. This is great if your hips feel a little tight, and mine feel a little tight today. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing pigeon, because it is a hip opener. And so for this side angle pose, which also can get into the hips, modifying the pose is appropriate. Let's breathe in. And our exhale to carefully turn and fold. I always have my hands out ready to catch me right there. Hands on the floor. Rise up onto the tiptoes, heel lifted. There's our runner's lunge. More pressure into the floor with the hands. If you can, lift the hips so it kind of releases the pressure from the left foot so it slides back right there. Plank pose. Hold. Good strength movement. Maybe bring the knees to the floor but stay in plank. Just like that, staying strong. All right, now you're going to sit back briefly in hero, getting off the hands. But we're going to sit off to the side so you can swing the legs around to the front here. Now you might need to scoot forward so you're sitting in the center of your mat. We're going to take a back bend. This is where you're going to use your blocks or books here. So make sure they're handy. When you're ready, go ahead and roll down onto your back. Go ahead and bring the knees into chest. We're going to do a few things here before we get into our bridge pose. The first thing is just find some movement. Perhaps just a rocking sensation. It might be left and right, forward and back. I typically do a figure 8 shape here, just getting into my low back. Check in with the feet, just as we did with our wrists. Maybe do the same thing with your feet. Circle the ankles one direction, then the other direction. You might flex and point a few times. Hold on just below the knees. You're going to take the legs apart like this. For now, I'm just going to call this frog on a back. Frog on its back. Because there is a frog pose, but it's flipped over. Okay, your belly is down. And it's a different sensation, so I just consider this frog on its back. And so here, either both legs at the same time or one leg at a time. I'm going to do one leg at a time because I think it's a little easier. Just a little circling. I'm just circling my left leg. I'm just supporting that leg with my left hand and circling it one direction and then the other direction. Really just getting into that leg socket. Of course, it's getting into the hip, and I'm going to do the other side. So I'm just making some circles, one direction a few times, and then the other direction. Then we can get ready for our bridge pose. Let's bring the knees together, set the feet onto the floor. Now your knees and feet can be at hip distance apart, but I typically take the feet a little wider. It provides a little bit more space in the hips and low back. Now make sure you've got your blocks in hand, ready to go. You're going to inhale, breathe in, fill up your lungs. Exhale, lift your hips just high enough so you can slide your blocks underneath you, and then sit. Make sure they're in the right spot for a good support. And then just settle in, adjust your body, your feet, your back, your arms. And then just settle in. Take some deep breaths. I like doing this version of the pose because you don't have to put a lot of energy into it to hold it. It can be very relaxing, actually. Nice opening for the whole front side of the body. We'll add something just a little bit to this pose, which might also assist in our pigeon pose that we're going to be doing. Now you can stay just like this in your bridge, but feel free to maybe start wiggling the feet forward. Okay, I'm just wiggling them forward, and they might even just go straight, okay, or straight-ish, okay. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and extend the legs. It feels very different in the back, so be aware of how this might feel in the back. But with the legs extended, we're just getting a little bit more lengthening effort in this area, the pelvis, because your pelvis is kind of the highest point here, but the stretch kind of in the upper thighs and hip flexors. At any point, you can just bend the knees and just plant the feet into the ground. This might even stretch the low belly a little bit. All right, we're going to return to the bridge right there. And let's get out of the pose. So just press feet into the floor, lift your hips, slide the blocks out from underneath you, set them to the side, and then come down to the ground. Take a stretch here, extend the legs out front, reach your arms behind you. Nice reach and stretch there. And then hug both knees into chest. Now you can rock your way forward and up to seated or roll to your side like I'm doing now, right there. And then press yourself up until you're in seated. Once you're in seated, let's come back to cobbler's pose for just a moment. I'm going to use my blocks again for a little support, because this also is another setup for our pigeon pose. Now, of course, remember this is bound angle. The angle is the bent knees here. Now, when we get into pigeon, you'll be doing one leg like this while the other leg is extending behind you. So it hits several points. With the leg that's in front, we're going to be getting into the inner thigh. You might even get in the outer hip area. You'll feel it there. And whatever leg is extended back behind us, we get into that hip flexor, the front portion of the leg. Kind of like what we just did in that bridge pose. When the legs were extended, it gets into that part of the body. Alrighty. So now let's come to hands and knees, and let's move into our first pigeon pose. I'm going to adjust my mat. And here, if you need some padding, this is where you might want to bring in your blanket or towel, maybe for your knees. Have a big cushion or pillow, okay, maybe out in front, and then some stacked blocks. Alrighty? So hands and knees just like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of slide my right knee up towards my right wrist. My left foot that I'm tapping, I'm going to tuck the toes, use the tucked toes there to lift the knee, just like that, so I'm straightening the leg. This right foot that I'm tapping, I'm swinging it a little bit over to the left side. So I've angled the leg just a little bit there. I'm setting the left knee back down onto the blanket, and using the left knee and toes, I'm crawling back just a little bit. Again, remember, we're working at 60 to 70%. You don't have to go back too far. This is what I was talking about. One leg is behind and one leg is in front. That's bent. And since we're not very close to the floor, this is where your props will come in handy. You can lie down here. Actually, I'm going to come down to my forearms like this, and you can be resting on the big cushion. Okay? Now the right hip is probably not touching the floor. This is where your stacked books or blocks can come in handy, and just put them underneath. So this is our gentle pigeon pose. Now, if this feels a little bit too strenuous on the right knee, the knee that's kind of bent and underneath this, either rise up out of the pose a little bit so there's less tension, even change the angle of this bent front leg, or even come out of the pose completely, just in case this doesn't feel quite right for your knee joints today. This is our gentle pigeon pose. It's really just a pigeon pose. We're just using the props to help support our bodies. Let's just take 2 more breaths here. Then start to rise up. I'm going to move my props. Just going to slide that pillow forward. I'm moving that block away from the right hip. Tuck toes again. Use knee and toes to shift forward so we have more weight and pressure in the hands. Relift that left knee. Okay, we can swing that right foot back so it's kind of back to the neutral position, and just kind of situate ourselves so we're back on hands and knees. If you like, you can sit back into that half hero. A little press for the wrist if you want. And let's get ready for the other side. Come to hands and knees. Your props are ready to go. We're sliding the left knee forward, just kind of closer towards that left wrist. Tuck right set of toes, lift that knee. Making space so you can swing this left foot over towards the right side of the mat. Nice angled left leg. Set the right knee down. Use right knee and toes to crawl back. Not too far, just enough where you start to have sensation. Then bring in all the props that you want to use. So I'm just using this block. I've kind of propped it so I can just kind of sit on that block. I brought in my big cushion, but it's not tall enough, so I put my other block here. And then I can lie down. I'm on my forearms, resting on the props. Check in with the body. The right leg that's now extended behind you, ideally it's lengthening the top of the leg or thigh right into the hip flexor and low belly. The left leg, of course, is bent at an angle, so that helps us to get into that inner left leg. And maybe you feel something, just depending on how deep you might be, outer hip and thigh. But since we're only working at 60 to 70%, you may not feel a whole lot, but that's okay. Again, we don't want to stress out the body because we're in a more mild position with all the props. It might mean that you can actually hold the pose longer. So again, if you don't have time for a full 60-minute practice, but you have time for a 2 or 3 minute practice, choose a pose. It might be the supported pigeon pose, or what I call gentle pigeon, and come to this posture. A few minutes on one side, a few minutes on the other side, and you've done some wonderful stretches for the legs. 2 more breaths now. And when you're ready, carefully rising. I'll move my props. Tuck your toes behind you. Shift using the knee and toes so you can shift forward. You can see how it realigns my shoulders over the wrists, kind of like a plank position. I'm lifting this right knee so I can swing this left foot back to its neutral place and just return to hands and knees. Tucking toes, sit back half hero, that nice light stretch. Now I said I had some other versions of pigeons, so we're going to get set up for those. That's when we're going to be using another prop. That's your wall, table, or chair. All right, let's move some of these props out of the way. And then we're going to gently make our way back up to a standing position. I'm moving my big cushion out of the way here too, and while I'm down here, I'm just going to adjust my yoga mat. There we go. So I'm on hands and knees. Let's go to downward facing dog. Just stepping hands forward, spread out your fingers, press, strong straight arms, tuck toes, lift the knees, hips into the air, adjust the feet. There's our downward facing dog. Let's step forward a little bit, just to the center of the mat perhaps. Feet are flat on the floor. Slide fingers towards toes. There's our forward fold. Shifting the weight into the heels. Bend your knees, extend the spine. Maybe hands up to the thighs, just to assist your own body. Press to help you lift. Hinge from hips. Rise up until you're nice and tall. Let's keep growing taller. Extending the arms up into the air. And arms return to your side with that exhale. Feel free to roll the shoulders. Check in with your elbows, wrists, and fingers. All right, let's bring in that prop. I'm going to bring in my chair. I'm actually going to fold my mat in like this so I can bring my chair in a little closer so you can see this. Okay? Now, in our pigeon pose, basically the leg is kind of at an angle like this. And so we're just going to recreate this, just like this, in fact, for this next posture. I call it cross-legged chair pose, but it has some similarities to that pigeon pose because it really gets into the outer hip. Alrighty, so just go ahead and brace yourself, just your hands on a wall, table, a counter, something like this. Okay, and kind of step back a little bit so there's some space between you and that wall or counter. You're going to bend the knees, put some weight into the right foot. I'm really relying on the back of my chair here. I'm picking up my left foot, I'm going to flex the foot so it activates it, and imagine you're going to kick a soccer ball out to the side. And with that bent right knee, I'm just crossing this ankle on that thigh. So it's just resting just behind the knee there. And this is basically the pose. And so what I'm going to do here, just so I can just get a little bit more into this outer hip and glute, you see how I just kind of move my chair forward? So I can just start to sit back. Okay, just sitting back, again, not too far. This is about as far as I'm going to take it today. I'm nicely balanced, I have the leg crossed, and I have some action here in the outer hip and thigh. Leg is crossed, and of course the standing leg is actually working very strongly as well, just by supporting the body. Now, in other classes, in my other power yoga classes that I teach, I would probably take this a little deeper. Again, we just want to be very mindful of how this feels in the body. But of course, for soft flow, even if you can go deeper, we're purposely working at a milder level. Let's go ahead and rise up, uncross the leg, plant the feet. Okay, I'm just going to come back up to standing, support myself on 2 feet. Take some deep breaths. And because that right leg was getting a lot of work, I'm just going to kind of just pedal the feet here a little bit. Okay, and just kind of get some movement going there. All right, we're going to do the exact same thing other side. Rely on that wall or table or chair. Soft knees. You can even bend them more because we're creating a little shelf for that cross leg. I'm putting weight into that left foot. Okay, very strong. Everything's activated. Picking up the right foot, flex the foot, kick the soccer ball, and then cross ankle over thigh. If you can't reach up that high, you can even cross a little lower, even cross where the toes even touch the floor. This is fine because you can still sit back and get some energy and stretch and sensation in the leg that's crossed. Okay, I'm just going to go here. I'm sitting back and down. And I'm going to pause right about there. I know I could go deeper, but I'm purposely pausing here so I can feel this wonderful, gentle stretch in that right leg. I'm also feeling this in my left leg a little bit there too, since it's activating to help me stand. And you know, sometimes I get the question, well, how long should I hold a pose? How many minutes? How many seconds? Well, in yoga, you may not count in seconds or minutes, you might count in breaths. So I would maybe suggest anywhere between 5 to 10 breaths. And because it might be a pose where it's a little bit more relaxed, I'd say, you know, a good 10 breaths. But this is a little bit more active, so 5 breaths is plenty. We're going to rise up, uncross the leg, lots of energy there, nice and tall. And then maybe feel free to kind of pedal the feet, something like this. Even lift the feet, leave a little stretch through the toes. I like doing that. That might feel really good there. Okay? And that's it. There's our pigeon postures. I'm going to move my chair out of the way. Let's come back to mountain pose and we'll make our way down and prepare for the closing sequence. So here we are, mountain pose. Take a breath. And inhale, extend the arms into the air. Exhale, swan dive forward. Spread your wings, bend your knees, folding. Feel the natural curvature of the spine, maybe touching your toes. Inhale, slide your hands up to your shins or knees, extending your spine. Exhale, fold and bend, low enough to bring hands to the floor. We're walking both feet back to the back end of the mat. Draw that straight line. There's plank pose. Once again, hold. We'll bring knees to the floor. Sit back briefly in hero, just long enough so we can sit off to the side. Swing the legs around to the front. Sit in the center of your mat. Have your blocks handy again. Roll down onto your back. So we're moving into our closing sequence. As before, when we got on our backs, add some movement here. Be sure to add some deep breaths with the movement. Don't forget the feet and ankles. Let's do the same thing where we took the legs wide for our frog on a back. And then circle the left leg a few times, one direction. And then the other direction, maybe 2 circles in each direction. Doing the right leg. 1, 2, in the other direction. 1, 2. And then bring the knees together. Set the feet onto the floor. Now, we're going to get set up for bridge, but we're actually going to extend the legs up into the air. So you can do this by just staying flat on your back and just extending the legs up into the air like this. Or plant the feet, get your blocks, press feet into the floor, lift your hips, slide your blocks underneath you to sit on. Make sure they're in a good spot so you feel supported here. And then extend the legs into the sky. Just a different sensation. Feels a little different. For some reason, I think it just feels a little easier. I'm not sure why this makes it a little bit easier. Maybe it's because of the angle or just the way the body is situated. Seems like it makes it easier to extend the legs straight up into the air. And the same thing, the legs are automatically energized as they extend upward, but feel free to continue that movement in the feet and ankles. I like to get into the knees a little bit by bending the knees, even pedal imaginary bicycle. You can do a frog on its back, just a different sensation, just a little stretch for those inner legs, and then right back to center. Now the knees can stay bent, just like this if you wanted to, or straight up, but still with a slight bend in the knees. Just a few more breaths. Then we'll bend the knees so you can plant the feet into the earth, lifting the hips, remove the blocks if you're using them, come all the way down. Bring the knees together. We're going back to bound angle pose, but now this is the reclining version or the lying down version. So just take the knees out to the sides. You can still use those blocks underneath the knees because the legs still may not touch the floor and they never need to, but you can use those props so your legs rest on them. And then you might even feel much more relaxed as you lie here, let the legs stretch and release in this reclining bound angle pose. This is just one variation of the posture. There really is no binding involved because we're not holding onto the feet. But there is another version where you are holding onto the feet while lying down. Holding here, maybe 3 more breaths, very relaxed here. And then when you're complete, you can bring the knees together, plant the feet. You can move your blocks out of the way if you'd like. Let's hug the knees into chest. A little movement here. Now I have another variation of Pigeon Pose. Now this is a nice alternative to the pigeon that we did on our bellies when we had all the pillows and cushions. And that can be a bit strenuous on the knees. So here's another variation of the posture. Go ahead and set the feet back down onto the floor. This also involves crossing the leg. So let's keep the right foot on the floor. You're going to pick up the left foot, kick the soccer ball, cross ankle over thigh. So we're here like this. So this is a nice alternative to Pigeon Pose in a lying down fashion, because it does get into this outer leg and hip. What you can do, if you don't have any sensation with this posturing with the right foot on the floor, what you may do is actually pick up the right foot, and then you'll take the left hand in this case and thread the needle, just kind of going through the eye of the needle, and then holding onto the right shin or right hamstring, whatever you can reach, and then that will certainly create more sensation in the outer left leg. And the pose is actually called Eye of the Needle pose, because we sent this thread of the left arm through the eye. Wonderful variation of that pigeon pose. One major difference is that we're not getting the hip flexor stretch. Let's take 3 more breaths here. After the 3rd breath, we'll set the right foot down, uncross the legs. Just hold here, just feet on the floor. Take a few deep breaths, just let the body relax before we get to the other side. All right, now we'll keep the left foot where it is. We'll pick up the right foot, kick the soccer ball, and cross right ankle over left thigh. Again, just going to check in because you might have enough sensation here. For me, this is really a low percentage. This is like a 20 or 30% for me, so I don't have a lot of sensation. But once I start picking up the left foot, drawing the legs towards myself, threading the eye of the needle with the right arm, holding onto the left shin or hamstring certainly dials it up. I'm at a good 70% here. Certainly feeling this, but I did mention that I tend to have tighter hips or outer hips specifically, and so these kinds of poses, I really do feel them. So just check in and notice how this feels for you. Modify as needed, and rest at any time when you feel complete. Wherever you are, if you're in the pose or have completed the pose, make sure you're paying attention to your breath. And to finish, we'll take 3 more breaths. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm flexing my feet. What it does, it kind of stabilizes the hips, especially the leg that's crossed, flexing the feet. So I kind of have gotten into the habit of doing that. They certainly can be relaxed, but it'll feel different. And when you're done, let's just set the left foot onto the floor. We'll uncross the right leg, plant that foot onto the floor. Rest. Let the body kind of melt into the ground. You can even do a nice stretch here. Extend the legs out front. Reach the arms behind you, a little lengthening, just to get any binding out of that low back. We're going to finish with a twist. Your arms can come down by your side. Bend your knees again. Let's try something a little different. You're going to take your feet wide, so your feet come out maybe to the edges of the mat. The feet and legs are a little wider. And very slowly and gently let the knees dip to the left side of the room. Now what's happening here, the left leg, okay, is creating what I call an outer rotation. The leg is turning outward, and it just feels a little bit more natural. The right leg is dipping inward and is creating an inward rotation in that hip and leg. Okay. So that's where you're probably going to feel this, on the right side and even through that low back. We're not going to hold here long, just one more breath. Just a different style and sensation of a twist. Let's come back up to center, pause so everything can realign. And we'll slowly take the knees over to the right side. Now the left knee that's dipping inward is doing an inner rotation, and that's where we're going to have most of the effect. Maybe on that left leg, but maybe feel this in the left side of the body, kind of that low back region. While the right leg is doing more of a natural outer spiral or outer rotation. 2 more breaths. Just call that a windshield wiper twist. Let's come back up to center, pause. Let's move into Shavasana. Just go ahead and extend the legs out front. Your arms down by your side, maybe with palms up. Feel everything relax. Your feet just kind of fall open. Your legs will relax, as well as your hips. You might even feel your back relax into the ground. Shoulders, head. Feel free to keep your eyes opened, just gazing softly upward, or you can close your eyes and move inward. Take a few moments and pay attention to your breathing. Maybe 2 or 3 deep breaths. And after those deep breaths, just settle into soft, gentle breathing. And just allow your whole body and your mind to relax. Just holding here in stillness. As you're breathing, you might even come back to your personal intention. Hopefully your practice today was helpful in guiding you towards that intention. Feel free to stay here as long as you'd like, especially if you feel very relaxed. There's no reason to interrupt this relaxing moment. Even as I end the practice, feel free to stay just as you are. When it is time to move, rather than moving your body too quickly, start moving the breath. Just take 5 slow, deep breaths. And that expansive quality in the breathing brings movement to the body. At first it might be quite subtle. As movement returns, you might wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. And just let that movement move through the entire body. And after your 5th breath, moving in slow motion, roll to one side of your body. So perhaps you're lying in this fetal position for a moment. And then press and lift to come to seated. And if you have something soft to sit on, bring that in. And perhaps return to a comfortable cross-legged position where you're able to sit up tall with a lengthened spine. Relax shoulders, arms can relax down by your side with your hands in your lap, or you can bring hands to heart center. Take one more breath in and out. Very nice.
And as we come to the close of our practice together, we bow saying, Namaste.